Anything happen recently? in watching this impeachment piss take, two things came to mind. Number one, someone needs to tell Jerry Nadler that a collarbone is not a belt. And two, if Napoleon was correct in claiming history is a lie agreed upon, then historians are much better liars than the DNC. Memo to the Mensheviks in the glass House of Representatives. Color-coordinated funereal wardrobe aside, is a damn sight easier to sell an indifferent populace on the efficacy of the evidence you've repeatedly refused to fucking show and the apolitical nature of the proceedings themselves when you can all actually agree on what those crimes fucking are. I'm mortified to admit I watched something like 5 uninterrupted hours of opening statements from every Stalin-filleting fucknob in the Democratic wing of the House, and over 1 hour alone, I counted several separate DNC reps put it down to everything from quid pro quo to abusive power to compromising national security to Russian interference, which I'd remind you he was not only cleared of by the Mueller report, but remains the literal opposite of the Ukrainian interference Trump is currently, theoretically, being accused of, to multiple mentions of his declamatory rhetoric on Twitter. I feel duty-bound to be a pedantic little prick and point out most of the affronts I just fucking named are not numbered in the actual charges against him. You know what else doesn't sell us on the impartiality of the arbitrating body here? Having to browbeat your own side for openly cheering when the first article of impeachment was read.
The yeas are 230, the nays are 197, present is 1. Article 1 is adopted. The question is on adoption.
Did they forget to have a fucking meeting here? Hell, Pelosi herself accused Trump of bribery, only for the final charges against Trump to not fucking include it.
Speaker, you yourself accused him of bribery. Why did you decide not to make bribery one of the articles of impeachment?
I myself am not a lawyer. Sometimes I act like one. Not as often as I act as a doctor. I practice medicine on the side without benefit of diploma, too. This is a decision that was recommended by our working together with our committee chairs, our attorneys, and the rest. So the articles are what they are.
Just answer the damn questions.
Color me as crazy as that woman's eyebrows, but that appears to be the House Majority Leader admitting on a live mic that even the DNC lawyers believe at least one of their charges was bullshit. Ah, Nancy Lugosi. Who knew a House Speaker could be incapable of speech? Absent a coherent accusation, they threw every strand of spaghetti against the White House wall to see what fucking stuck. Look, you know it. I know it. This was an act of partisan vengeance, and you'll almost have to try not to be hip to that fact at this point. So, what's the long game here? In a word? None. They possess no long-term options to avoid or even mitigate the down-ticket disaster come November. They simply sauntered too far down the impeachment road at this point to turn back now. But as I said nearly a week ago, they do have just one shockingly desperate, last-ditch, Hail Mary horseshit souffle to serve up before it all falls down around their hearing aids. As I explained at the time, the best they can possibly muster is to refuse to hand over the articles of impeachment to a Senate mathematically guaranteed to overturn them and save face by blaming Mitch McConnell for not recusing himself. Sort of kind of like, exactly what they threatened to do within hours of me predicting that publicly.
Nancy Pelosi is suggesting that she may withhold, as I just said to Congressman Collins, the articles of impeachment from the Senate unless they cave to her demands.
We're not sending it tonight because it's difficult to determine who the managers would be until we see the arena in which we will be participating.
Look, if that sounds shakier than Hillary on an escalator, that's because the time to turn back was before you drafted the fucking articles of impeachment. As I warned over 2 titty fucking months ago, your best bet was investigating impeachment, dragging out the process for your preemie pals in the mainstream media to exhaustively cover before folding your tent ultimately and playing it off like you found nothing illegal, but plenty that was unethical. Your base would blow you at the ballot box, even though the election would be effectively lost by that point. Look, if you make like the Senate can't be trusted and refuse to hand in your homework here, the longer term is still the electoral sodomy session of the century, but at least you staunch the bleeding in the shorter term, and McConnell can play the fucking fall guy. Not a terribly convincing one, though. The accusation that McConnell is somehow too partisan to impartially assess Trump's guilt is a laugh and a goddamn half when you're fresh off a non-partisan impeachment hearing wherein the entire yes vote was comprised of Democrats, not one Republican crossed the aisle in rebuke of Trump, and at least 3 Democrats voted no or refused to fucking join the crusade to kill your own party. One of whom was, no surprise, Tulsi Gabbard, and the other 2... you'll learn all about in November, since they're about the only Democrats that'll be re-elected. Having played the only card left in their deck, it is now obvious to me the gross miscalculation that led to this asinine decision. You can see it in the polls, you can see it in the eyes of every dipshit on that debate stage, you can even see it at the low-energy impeachment rallies. The Democratic Party has a base problem. Don't believe me? Peep those post-apocalyptic Biden rallies. Peer across the retirement home cafeterias Elizabeth Warren's lucky to half sell out. But don't obsess about the raw numbers or abandoned bingo halls themselves. Really look at those faces in the dwindling crowd. The prefab fucking signs they hold aloft only because they were handed them and told to. Look at them! You'd see more laughs at a libertarian tax audit. Impeachment pops a number with that base. In the very short term. We're talking Tom Cruise fucking short here. But ask yourself, how many seconds after it's either overturned or they take their ball and go back to the House is that enthusiasm liable to last? Trump stays president. Hell, even if every rhino skitters out of the woodwork, you need over 20 defections to hip-check Trump out of the White House and the Senate. But let's disregard the daunting math and say by some far-flung fucking chance, he's somehow ousted. You're still stuck with Pence, who, like most vice presidents, has done dick with a side of stand there for the last 4 years. What are you gonna convict him of? Looking like the dude from fucking C-Lab? You're boned! You overreacted to the announcement of Barr's counter-investigation, one which just the other day incited Comey himself to admit he flubbed fucking evidence to indict Trump, and now you're too far down the slip-and-slide to stop! And every poor kid knows how a ride on a slip-and-slide ends. In a neck brace and a new father. I'm Razor Fist. God fucking speed. No other choice than suicide and mania.
I tell you what, Madam Speaker, let me have just a few minutes, stop the clock, and let me go around to the press corps and to everybody here, and I'm going to accuse you of something. You did it. You did it. You did it. You did it. Now prove it's wrong. You did it. Guess what? You don't want to, because deep down you know that that's turning the entire jurisprudence of this country upside down. You're not guilty until you're proven. You're innocent. We have heard the majority leader say this president is guilty and not the other way around. What we have found over the past few weeks is it is okay for the majority to tear down a foreign leader because they can't make their case. They've called him a liar or weak or worse, or as it was called in the committee, even looked like a battered wife. It is below the dignity of this body and this majority to tear down a foreign leader because they can't make their case against this one.